Randy Moss changed NFL defense by forcing coordinators to keep two safeties deep and accept the middle of the field as the lesser evil, because one late rotation could turn into 6 points from 60 yards away. The league didn't gradually figure out Moss. It got hit by him. In 1998, Moss arrived in Minnesota and immediately posted 69 catches, won 313 yards, and 17 receiving touchdowns, breaking the rookie touchdown record and leading the NFL in that category as a rookie. Those numbers mattered, but the deeper shock was the way he produced them. Moss didn't need 12 play drives. Moss made single snaps feel like a full possession, and that forced defensive coordinators to confront a nightmare truth. The calls that worked against normal receivers could become malpractice against this one. If you want the early snapshot that changed how people called defense, it's Thanksgiving in Dallas, Week 13 of 1998. Moss caught 3 passes for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns, 3 receptions, 3 drive-ending detonations. That isn't just a bad day for a corner. That's a moment that changes what a staff considers safe. The first mistake teams made against Moss was treating the deep ball like a calculated risk. Defensive coordinators think in percentages. Deep shots take time. Go routes are low completion throws. Against most players, that logic holds. Against Moss, the math breaks because Moss shrinks the margin of error. A post safety who is 1 step late isn't almost there. A post safety who is 1 step late is watching a touchdown. The fix that spread across the league wasn't one magical coverage. It was a structural decision. Keep a roof over the defense more often, earlier, and more honestly. That meant more split safety looks as a starting point. That meant more pre-snap alignment that showed help instead of disguising it late. That meant more reluctance to spin a safety down into the box if Moss was outside. Teams did not do that because it felt conservative. Teams did it because the alternative was getting punished instantly. A lot of people compress this into Moss made defenses play too high. That's close, but it misses the real shift. Split safety coverages existed before Moss. What Moss changed was how often coordinators felt comfortable rotating out of them, and how often corners were asked to press without guaranteed help. Against Moss, late rotation stopped being deception and started being risk. Disguise requires time. Moss is a player who takes time away. The Minnesota context made the problem even more severe. Moss wasn't stretching the field in a vacuum. The 1998 Vikings went 15-1 and scored 556 points, an NFL record at the time, and they never scored fewer than 24 points all season. With Randall Cunningham pushing the ball and Chris Carter punishing soft zones in the intermediate game, defenses couldn't just sell out to Moss and survive. If a defense tilted too hard to protect the deep ball, Carter ate the pockets of space that normally belong to a safety in the middle. If a defense stayed balanced and refused to commit real help, Moss ended the drive with one throw. This is what changing defenses really means. Moss didn't only demand attention, Moss demanded resources, and resources are finite. If a safety is living at 18 yards to keep the top on, that safety is not in the box fitting the run. If a corner is bailing instead of pressing, that corner is conceding a free release and giving the quarterback an easier read. If a defense commits to 2 deep safeties, it becomes softer in certain run looks and certain intermediate windows. The league's response to Moss wasn't double him. The response was accept a different set of weaknesses, because the weakness you can't accept is the explosive touchdown. The second mistake Moss exposed is the one defensive coordinators still talk about today, the pretty blitz. The coordinator draws up pressure, loves it on the whiteboard, and assumes the quarterback won't have time to take a shot. Against Moss, that assumption becomes a trap. Moss turns single coverage into a green light, and he turns aggressive pressure into a gamble with the worst possible downside. So the fix wasn't that defenses stopped pressuring forever. The fix was changing how they pressured. More simulated pressure, more 4-man rushes with disguised looks behind them, more attempts to win up front without sacrificing the deep roof. Because if the post safety dies, the drive ends in the wrong way. The most misunderstood part of Moss's impact is the idea that he was only a go route guy. That's the lazy version. The accurate version is more tactical. Moss was a vertical threat so terrifying that defenses were forced into conservative structures, and those conservative structures created oxygen in the middle of the field for everyone else. The deep threat wasn't just a deep shot generator. It was a geometry weapon. That geometry lesson becomes obvious in New England. In 2007, Moss set the NFL single-season record with 23 receiving touchdowns, breaking Jerry Rice's previous record. That season is often told as Brady unlocked Moss, as if it's only quarterback chemistry. It's bigger than that. Moss bent coverages until the entire offense felt like it had more space. A defense trying to handle Moss outside has to widen. Corners play with more cushion or more help. Safeties cheat toward his side or stay deeper to avoid being caught flat-footed. And when a defense widens and deepens to survive the outside vertical threat, the interior routes breathe, seams open, crossers become safer, option routes become cleaner. Even checkdowns become more valuable because the defense is playing from fear instead of aggression. Here's a second contrarian truth that most highlight-only breakdowns miss. Moss wasn't only a deep field problem. Moss was a red zone problem too. Defenses love the red zone because windows shrink and space disappears. Moss disrupted that comfort. In tight space, defenses want to squeeze routes and challenge throws. Moss made tight coverage feel theoretical because his catch-point dominance changed what contested meant. A corner could be in phase and still lose. A safety could be shading and still arrive too late. That forced red zone calls to tilt, bracket, and overreact, and every overreaction created a different kind of opening. There's also a box score trap that made Moss feel confusing to casual viewers. Moss's career had stretches where the numbers didn't match the myth, and people treated that as proof he was inconsistent. But the tactical impact of a player like Moss depends heavily on whether the offense can actually access the vertical game. If an offense can't protect long enough, can't threaten deep consistently, or can't punish single coverage with timing, defenses stop paying the full Moss tax. Safeties creep down, corners play tighter, the fear fades, and the structure relaxes. The fix, when Moss was paired with an offense that could actually deliver the deep ball on time, was immediate. The safeties went back to depth. The corner stopped being allowed to be reckless. The coordinator's favorite blitz started collecting dust on the call sheet. That's not just a player playing better. That's the sport reacting to a threat that changes the cost of being wrong. The cultural footprint tells the same story. Mossed became a verb because it describes a repeated pattern defenders recognized. Decent coverage, good positioning, and it still didn't matter. When a receiver makes that outcome feel normal, corners start getting coached differently. Don't get stacked at the release. Disrupt timing early. Force the sideline. Play through the hands late. Always layer help behind you. That is schematic change showing up as technique change, which is the clearest sign a player actually altered the game. So how did Randy Moss change the way defenses played football? Not by being hard to cover. Plenty of players are hard to cover. Randy Moss changed what felt safe for an NFL defense to call. He changed how often teams could live in single high by choice. He changed how expensive pressure became when post-safety help wasn't guaranteed. He changed how early safeties had to declare intentions, because late rotation became dangerous. And he changed how offenses attack the middle, because once the defense protects the roof first, the middle becomes a different battlefield. The clearest proof is still that 1998 Minnesota machine. 556 points, 15-1, and at least 24 points every week, built around a rookie who turned vertical threats into weekly inevitability. A defense could try to be aggressive and risk instant death, or it could try to stay alive and accept a slower kind of bleeding. That choice, protect the deep ball over everything else, became a league-wide habit. Randy Moss didn't just put up historic numbers. Randy Moss changed defensive priorities, and once a player forces safety to outrank aggression, football is no longer the same sport.